Howdy Smite fans, J-Mac here. Phase number 1 of the SPL is all wrapped up, and with that, we're getting ready to head into our Masters land. But before we do that, I decided I'd give you guys a very brief recap as to what happened all in phase number 1. We're going to break this one down team by team to see what happened in phase 1 of the SPL with the SPL Weekly Recap. Well, our first team to talk about here is going to be the Valhalla Valkyries. Coming into Season 9, the general consensus among most people was that this is a team that's probably going to take at least a phase to grow. One in which they might find a sneaky game or two with their unorthodox drafts, but likely not a full set. Well, that almost rang true, if not for at least a devastating upset over the Leviathans back in Week 4. This team still has some wrinkles to iron out before they're able to start climbing up the standings, though. Consistency, first and foremost, has been the major problem with this team, most notably over in the duo lane, where the Valkyries have been struggling for the majority of Phase 1. The Valks are a team that can absolutely dominate in a game, but when it comes down to these full sets, they start to falter. Now, with all the Valkyries finally under one roof, we should hopefully see a shift in their play. This mixed roster of rookies and veterans have a lot to prove as we move on into the rest of the year. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Solar Scarabs. Hot off their Worlds run, the Scarabs had a lot to show for coming into the new year. Season 9, the Scarabs lost Solar Troll, but picked up Scary D for the solo lane. And even with this change, the expectation around the Scarabs was to finally break out of the bottom 2. But unfortunately in Phase 1, that didn't come to fruition. The Scarabs' continued trends of phases prior still been bogging them down here in Phase number 1. And their only set win that they found so far was up against the Valkyries, which did keep them out of the bottom seat at the least. Even despite taking a game off the Kings and the Warriors, the Scarabs haven't been able to drive home a big set win just yet this phase. The question at the end of the day that we're still waiting to see answered is, are the Scarabs finally going to find their breakout? It's going to have to come soon, or the league might just leave them behind. And now, we're going to talk about the Atlantis Leviathans, who are probably not the team that anyone was expecting to be the 6th seed in Phase 1. After their Worlds win, everyone expected the Leviathans to dominate the league for at least another phase, maybe. However, we started seeing cracks in the armor as the weeks went on. A close loss to the Warriors, and 2 hard losses to both the Dragons and the Bolts, all wrapped up with a heartbreaking upset against the Valkyries, have raised eyebrows amongst the league. This isn't the Leviathans that won Worlds. This isn't the Leviathans that were supposed to sweep through the league. The Levi's trends of the past were to experience the meta and then form a counter around it at major events. Can that trend hold true for this team as we approach Masters? Or has the rest of the league finally stepped up that much? We'll have to wait and see if the Leviathans can dig themselves out of this rut that they're in as we jump into Masters shortly. We didn't quite know what to expect of the Camelot Kings as we jumped into Season 9. They were the only team to push the Leviathans to an extra game at Worlds, and with all of the team finally on land for at least a good duration, greatness was expected. That greatness was realized, at least to a degree. One bad week of play kept the Kings from potentially taking a top 3 spot. The objective-minded playstyle of the Kings had net them many of wins in the past. But as we started approaching the latter half of Phase 1, the rest of the league had caught up to this approach and began to match that macro play. The biggest benefit to the King in their sets is that their drafts always keep the enemy guessing. They're a team that loves to experiment, which can lead them to either dominating wins or crushing losses. With their wins against the Bolts and the Dragons, we know that the Kings are capable of taking top teams down. It's just going to come down to the play on field and their adaptations to what the opponent does. Expect something spicy with this team as the year goes on. Similar to the Leviathans, the expectations were high for the Tardis Titans, especially coming off their 2nd place Worlds run. A stubborn team, to say the least, when it comes to their playstyle. The Titans haven't really changed their way of approaching the games that they load into. And up until the recent seeding tournament, that style was still working. However, as we started getting into Week 4 and then the seeding event, we've seen teams are able to adapt to this kind of dated playstyle. And even with their mix-up of focusing more on objective play, it wasn't enough to shake off the other top 4 teams. In the same vein of the Levi's, the Titans are a team that once was far above the competition, but have been slowly figured out by the rest of the teams around them. Something needs to change in their gameplay, otherwise they may not be able to push further up in the standings. Masters will have to be the first stepping stone towards that push. Man, what can I say about this Oni Warriors team? Season 8, they struggled. With not all their team in Georgia, and then the SPL qualifiers, they kind of struggled a bit to make it back to the SPL. But phase number 1, this team took the league by storm. Starting off with their upset over the Leviathans, we were all left questioning, is this the new Warriors, or was it just a fluke? Well, the answer to that, this is no fluke. The Warriors continued to take down top teams throughout the phase. Going into the seeding tournament as the dark horse, we saw them struggle against the Bolts, but take down the Titans. If this Warriors team can continue this upward trend, we may very well see world contention on the line for them in future phases. For now, cleaning up their inconsistencies is priority number 1 if they want to keep up this trend of progressing upward through the ranks. They look good so far. Time to see if they can hold up when things go awry. Is the third time the charm for the Olympus Bolts? If phase 1 is any indication, then surely so. With only set losses to the Dragons and the Kings, the Bolts have been on a staggering uprise since Season 8. The team across the board has stepped up their game and are finally working together as a true unit. But we've seen this from the Bolts of the past, where a strong early phase ends up not translating to much during tournament play. However, this is a much more competitive team, and easily a top contender right now for top of the league. A 3-0 over the Warriors during the seeding tournament cemented them a top spot for Masters, but now it's up to them to close out the event with a win. With the expanded God pools and the boosted confidence sweeping through the entirety of the Bolts, we're seeing a Bolts roster stronger than ever. Masters will be a fine test to the Bolts to see if this team can still fight under the pressure. The Jade Dragons are just such an interesting team to watch right now. They always come out strong in phase 1, but then tend to peter off as the rest of the year runs its course. For now, that's at least still holding true with the Dragons as they found success in phase 1. The new addition of Pagon to this team has reshaped and solidified the dynamic of this squad. And it's become a problem for so many of the teams in this league. Much like seasons past, this dynamic has also shifted up the draft and the play style on field to really shake things up in the league. If they can keep up this momentum, the Dragons should remain in the running as one of the top teams in the league. But with the rookie's first major LAN event on the horizon, how will the team hold up to the competition as we approach Masters? And there you have it, the recap of our 8 teams of the SPL who are going to be heading into the Masters LAN. But it's not just going to be the SPL there. Oh, no. We're also going to have the NA and the EU top 4 SCC teams taking place in this event. It's going to take place over the course of 2 weeks, and it's all going to start on May 19th. So make sure that you're tuning in then to catch up on the event over on our channel at twitch.tv/SmiteGame. I hope to see you there, and thanks for stopping by for the SPL Weekly Recap.